I want to begin by talking about consumerism. Not looking at goods and services as part of life and as sustaining your life, but as the point of your life. It's what ministers and rabbis and priests often rail against when they say, don't be too materialistic. Remember that other parts of life are just as important as the quantity and quality of goods and services you get. The relationships you have with the people you love, the relationships you have with the people you work with or encounter or are neighbors and so on. Well, why is it often that people tell us to avoid or to beware of consumerism? Why do people overvalue consuming, buying, accumulating objects? Is that some sort of basic human failing? Is it some part of the basic human nature we all share? I don't think so. I think it has to do with a particular economic arrangement in our society, and it's that I want to talk to you about. And here I mean how we organize labor and the reward to labor. Here's what we do. We say to the mass of people, you must have a job. You must come to work Monday to Friday, more or less, at a certain hour, 8 or 9 in the morning, and stay until 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And while you're at the workplace, you are to do this kind of work in this kind of way with these kinds of tools and equipment. And when you're done, the work you've created belongs instantaneously to somebody else. The worker who helps to produce everything goes home at the end of the workday and has no rights whatsoever over what he or she has helped to produce. And that causes trouble. You may not be aware of it. It may not be psychologically possible for you to face what you're losing, but you feel just as upset as the little child in the sandbox playing with a little truck until another little child comes over, yanks the truck away, and goes plays in another corner. Something has been taken from you. Something is no longer yours or under your control. You can't even play with your truck. Is it really yours? These kinds of issues don't go away when you grow up, because they're reproduced in the workplace. You all know this. What's the compensation that is given to workers who work all day, pour their brains and muscles into something, and then lose it? The answer is your payment, your wage, your salary. You are taught from early on in your life that this is a reasonable exchange. You come, you work, you create, you give. And you get money, the means of consumption. Consumer is the part of you that is the reward for the labor. The labor intrinsically is not only not satisfying, the labor can be downright unpleasant. For many of us, it is. But we offset the displeasure, the pain, the loss of time at work by saying to us and being told all our lives, yes, but you're going to be able to consume. Consuming is the reward for labor. Now, hidden in this arrangement is an assumption that labor is likely to be, and kind of is acceptable to be, a drag, unpleasant, unwanted. The negative, which is compensated by the positive of consumption. If you grow up in a society like that, if you live your life in a society like that, of course you will be driven, sooner or later, to overvalue consumption. It's literally the good side. You work all day so you can go to the mall in the evening. In the transition from the unpleasant part of the day to the consuming part, you have an interlude which you call your happy hour. It's a way of recognizing that the previous 8 were the unhappy hours. Labor is considered in economics to be a disutility. That's a nice way of saying no good, no fun, a drag, a loss, an unpleasantness. Consumption, that's positive, that's good. You are taught to think that labor is acceptable as a burden because it is adequately compensated if you're properly paid. Of course, then, you come to value consumption. You've literally been trained to see it as the good part of life, just as you have been trained to accept work and the workplace conditions as the intrinsically unpleasant. But why should you? Imagine if work were to be as satisfying to you as consumption. Suppose the workplace was a place of sustaining, powerful, helpful, important relationships. And suppose it was necessary that work be organized that way because what the relationships are at work are at least as important to the quality of your life as what you can buy in a store with what you are paid. It's as if I had to remind myself, if I can quote the Bible, that human beings do not live by bread alone. The quality of the work life ought always to have been every bit as important as the payment for it. To give up on the quality of life at work is to give up on a major part of your life, and there's no reason to do it.